I would like to stand in front of you today and talk about UX design for a mobile wallet. It will include some of that, but not very much. Some numbers for you first. So apparently, according to these numbers, which I didn't make up at all, there's a lot of people in the world that have a mobile phone, twice as many of us that have something which is a bit like a wallet. So there's a place in the middle where these two things can combine. Now apparently, some people think mashing those two things together would be a really good idea. That would be like the coolest thing in the world. Now, the question is really, who's responsible for that thought and who are that 0.004%? Well, really, it's these usual suspects, really. So it's really about banks, network providers, carriers, merchant systems, and all these people who provide all this infrastructure, all this platform, all this hardware and stuff, which makes a mobile wallet quite a nice, neat place to mash all this together and commoditize and kind of sell it to you to enrich your life experience. But can they really change my life with this? Well, it's an open question, but what does the vision of this life-changing piece of kit actually look like? Well, if you take the vision as provided by those banks, merchants, network providers, carriers, it looks a bit like this. Yeah, very happy, here's your goods, put with that with your mobile wallet, thank you very much, all smiles. She's particularly happy that somebody used a mobile wallet, tapped on a point-of-sale terminal and walked away with a transaction complete. This is a fantastic experience. This, I have no idea what's going on here. This is like some orange Blue Peter creation bouncing around with a fucking orange thing buying orange stuff. So that one doesn't hit the mark quite so well, but you get the idea for the kind of visions that these people are actually presenting. Now really, what does, certainly in terms of when we consider the user experience around kind of a mobile wallet, these visions are nice, but how might it actually really look? You know, what are the things we should think about if we're designing for a mobile wallet, for example? Well, gears of fear. Number one, gears of fear, they're always turning in users' heads, right? So gears of fear are really, especially with mobile wallets, they're the things which tell you, I've got no idea what's going on here. And so I really don't know how to interact with this thing. Gears of fear are the things which really put people off interacting with this thing in the first place. They've got absolutely no idea what's going on. Now, number two is the approach of reproach. You can see a theme emerging along the bottom here. Approach of reproach is it's that kind of user experience uncomfortable moment where you start to begin to commit to a transaction of some sort or other. So in the mobile wallet world, you might think it's that piece where I've got this thing, I've got a point of sale in the middle of prep, and I'm not really quite sure what's going to go on here, and everybody's looking at me like I've just dropped my trousers. That's just me, obviously. And lastly, well, certainly in terms of mobile wallet user experience, this lag factor whereby there might be some delay between committing to an action, performing an action, and actually something then happening as a result of that action. So really, this means that the mobile wallet is quite an unpredictable experience, which is why some of these context of use patterns really are really important in terms of us considering how we design for these. Can the design challenge be? Well, of course, I can express the design challenge outside of those contexts as uses in terms of a couple of trends, really, that are emerging and people who develop and have mobile wallets out there at the moment. So there's a couple of threads, a couple of strands of mobile wallet kind of UX trends going on at the moment. One of those is you start complicated and you make it simple. So this really comes down to how you manage registration, activation, get people on board with the service, with the thing itself, and then go into a much more simple transactional model. This is the way that most of the carriers and banks do that, because they like to capture all that detail up front. They really like to know everything about you before they let you do anything with it. The other way of doing it is to start simple and make it complicated. And this is kind of the way that Google does it, really. They kind of know everything about you. They make it transparent. They let you in. When you then go to transact, they fuck that bit up slightly because they just ask you to put numbers and enter details and all this kind of stuff every time you transact. But you're in, so you bought into the service. They make that simple to actually engage, simple to sign up, simple to activate. Then there's the pain. But you know, these are the two ways that people tend to be doing these things at the moment. So as I say, yeah, registration heavy, transaction light. registration light, transaction heavy. These are kind of current themes for the UX design piece. But the biggest challenge of all, really, from a user experience design perspective, is which one of those routes you take has already been determined. Because the complexities around platform, fulfillment, supplier, carrier, all the bits and pieces they have already in place, partnerships with other people and suppliers and fulfillment models, the hardware, software, previous providers, previous software developers, all the stuff which is hanging around, that's already decided how the platform's going to be developed. So, the disparate components of the system are already there. The user experience design role just becomes then, how do you fit them all together to make it as good as it could possibly be? Not a great user design job, but a task nonetheless to try and fulfill. To show you how that looks, I'm going to talk about, in abstract terms, a project I did with a client recently to develop a mobile wallet. Now their business requirement was pretty simple. We'd like a mobile wallet, please. So from a user experience point of view, well, that's great. So there's lots of immersion, insight gathering, research we can do. There's some, we can do some gatherings, we can do prototype sketching, we can do all this stuff, put it on the walls, get them in, show them the concepts, that'll all be fantastic. They didn't really want all that, actually, because they had all the infrastructure in place. They had suppliers, they had partners, they had all that stuff ready. They wanted us to say, how does that all fit together and work? So not a great start to the program, but we did ask what they had that we could work with, and the conversation kind of went a little bit like this. Because what they've got is the partners, the design partners, implementation partners, partner partners, artifacts, document partners, asset partners, finished, half finished, just started, planned. I've wrote this down. Legislature, compliance, fulfillment, all the bits on these different banking, carrier, network system. I'm giving you time to read that, that's why I'm just making this up. And stakeholders and partners all over the place, communicated through Michael Jackson, through the moves. So that's the landscape that you have to work with. So notwithstanding that, I said, okay, right, let's go ahead. Let's do a UX design project. Let's make the best of it we can. Start with a bit of research, which was honestly a bit more than just typing that into Google. And then we thought, well, okay, I found out what it is and how it works. Let's get to some nice, interesting stuff. So we did, we did sketching, we did IA. We did some other stuff just to get an idea of what the user journeys and what the landscape looked like. We presented this back, got them in the room and said, this looked the kind of model that you can work with. They said, yeah, because the guys developing the platform already defined that. So we're great, now we'll fit together, won't it? And then we went on to doing some more advanced, well, not advanced, more detailed, more Axure-ish wireframes, just to get prototypes in front of customers so we could do user testing. So got prototypes in front of people. Now we used funky NFC handsets that are not actually an NFC handset. I don't need anybody to point that out, thank you. But we got these in front of people, did proper user testing with them, went through the system, said, how do you think that went? What do you like about that? What don't you like? If anybody's used Axure to do prototyping, I know the man at the back has. If you don't specify the viewport and take it into a testing lab and expect people not to press something and then it all zooms backwards and forwards, then remember to set your viewport is the only advice I can give you there. So we went through this process, did all the things, and out of the back of that research, presented back to the client, basically they said, well, this is the testers, right? This is the participants. We said, what do you think of this? They said, yeah, it's all right. But I got no idea what I just did, which really basically describes the outcomes of this piece of work. Because it wasn't a bad design, it wasn't a bad prototype, it wasn't a bad prototype, it wasn't a bad user journey. But the trouble that folks had when they were in the room is just the mobile wallet thing in a nutshell. They just didn't understand what it was. Conceptually, they couldn't understand how the mobile wallet piece worked, how the virtual money worked, how you tapped into it, how you spent a bit there, but you didn't really spend it because it hadn't transacted over there. So they didn't really understand the conceptual model around the wallet at all, which made it really difficult for them to really understand the process they were going through and undertake that. What we couldn't really do in testing, and what actually makes designing the mobile wallet really difficult as well, is the whole contextual model, the whole context of use, because all these things around terminals, transactional delays, dropping your trousers in prayer, all that kind of stuff that actually builds up context of use, that's really complicated, and I don't think, certainly we didn't do a good job on the project I did, because we couldn't understand all that. That's a big project in of itself, just to work out what all that stuff looks like. And based on number 1 and 2, number 3, they were going through it, but I think in the real world, the confidence that you need to transact with something like this, notwithstanding the fear that you have, and fear and loathing actually of number 1 and 2, that makes that confidence really difficult to build up. So if anything came out of this, I would say concept, context, confidence, because that's the slide I wrote, and then I have to talk about it. But really, I think there's a bigger project that for us to look at in terms of mobile wallet user experience design. And I think it's an interesting project, but I think that our hands are slightly tied by the way that the mobile wallet infrastructure is set up. And so if anybody approaches you to build a mobile wallet, just ask what they've got before you get started. Okay. Thanks. That was me. Thank you.